All right, everybody, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. And today's topic is the misunderstanding between Caribbeans and Africans in the UK. Now, yesterday, the topic or discussion we had was the misunderstanding between Black Americans and Nigerians, to be more specific, America. But today we're going to focus on the UK. I got my friend David on with us, all the way from the UK, and we're just gonna, chop it up and get his take on it. Now, David, you're first generation Ghanaian, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so when your parents immigrated now, were you born in Ghana or born in the UK?
UK.
Okay, so when your parents immigrated to the UK, Caribbeans and I guess Black Londoners or whatever you want to call it were already there.
Yeah, but the thing is by the time my parents had come to the UK, there was already Africans here as well that would have been maybe having like their first or second generation. But the first peoples, like the first Black people that majorly came to the UK after World War II was the Caribbean community. So they're like the Black community that has been here the absolute longest. And when my parents got here, yeah, they were already here, established second, third, fourth generations, things like that.
Now that the Caribbean, the Caribbeans you're speaking of, that's the one they're trying to kick out now, right?
Oh yeah, and also another thing with that is when they say Windrush generation, that like a lot of people think of like a specific peoples. It's in a way it is a specific peoples. Like when you're talking about Windrush, you're talking about the Caribbean immigrants that came in, the first ones brought in after World War II. But I mean, it goes on for like a bit of time. So there's a lot of people who were either that generation who are very old and having difficulties with the government, or in a lot of the cases, it's their children who came with them, who back in the late 1940s, you would have been able to allow your child to travel on your passport, for example. And a lot of them, their children are the ones who are getting kicked out as such. And some, there is like an unfair bias towards Nigerians as well. I'll say that the numbers of Nigerians that get deported as well is quite interesting. Like it's
You there? Oh, brother, then froze up on us. David. David, you're gonna have to repeat just about. I was gonna say you're gonna have to repeat what you said because you have froze up for a second.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was just saying that essentially that Windrush generation, a lot of them, whether it be them and for a lot of them, their children, those are the ones who recently, not even recently, but about a year ago, made the major news about, a lot of them were, for example, going back on holidays, and then all of a sudden they were having issues and the government were asking for substantial amounts of proof that they'd been in the country. And then some of them, unfortunately, didn't make it back. Some of them, they were getting trapped behind borders to and from, and it caused like a lot of issues. But yeah, it was predominantly as well the Jamaican community as well. Like a lot of Caribbean people from different islands were caught in that situation. But Jamaicans definitely had a lot of unfortunate, things that happened with them there.
Like, what kind of information were they requesting for them?
This one I thought was absolutely hilarious. They were asking for things like proof of, like proof of you being in the country. So if we're talking about people who got here in like 1955 and 1950 and stuff like that. Imagine being asked for proof for every year you've been in the country.
Every year.
Yeah. So things like people were having issues because they couldn't find school records to prove that they were in school in this country back in like 1960 something or like 1950 something, let alone confirming stuff like tax receipts or little things like that for every single year, over and over and over again. I mean, these were things which, let's be 100% honest, not everybody has that in their house.
No. No.
But for decades on end is absolutely disgraceful, especially because a lot of those people some of them were World War II veterans. A lot of them came here before their country gained independence.
Well, I mean, just if you could prove that you were a veteran, I would think would be enough.
Yeah, we think so, but unfortunately, as it's happened, I mean, when I really looked at some of the stories of people going to like their daughter's wedding in Jamaica or things like that, and them being trapped because the government didn't like recognize them. And not only that, but another aspect actually was that a lot of people who would have come in before Jamaica's independence and would have been raised in this country since they were like 8 years old before there was an independent Jamaica. You know, they thought they would have, they thought their indefinite leave to remain status was good. They thought everything was certified. They didn't think they needed to double check because, as you said, they were veterans. They spoke English. They had a saying, they said it was the mother country and all of that type of stuff. And unfortunately, they're getting really, they got screwed by the government. But what's scaring me is that we're already beginning to forget, and I don't want people to forget that that's still happening. And we're talking about people who, when they get trapped overseas and they won't get let back into the country, like you have to pay council tax every month in the UK. Council tax is not a joke. They will get you for that. Like they will get you for that.
What's council?
Council tax?
Yeah.
It's like the tax, like everyone pays council tax, like, helps with like roads and all that typical stuff that you would pay kind of local taxes for and things like that. But not paying council tax is like, obviously it's tax evasion and it's like a crime in that, but it's a particularly hot thing that you can't really, most people I know try and not avoid, like you don't really play with the council tax. Like they'll find you like a lot of the times.
No, it's like America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly like that. But my problem is that when these people who are the Windrush generation, remember, these are elderly people as well. So a lot of them are retired. And when they go and get stuck overseas and they can't come back, what happens is, in one case, one woman, she come back only to find out that she owed the council something like 20,000 in council tax because she'd been trapped in Jamaica for months, years in some cases, and they're demanding that back.
20,000 euros?
Pounds.
Pounds, I'm sorry, pounds, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And these are things which have financially ruined people after everything, like wiped out your whole, in like pension, all of that type of stuff, let alone the health issues. People are sick and they need medication, and they do not plan to go away for such a long time, and that's affecting them. But yeah, that's the generation who was here, who took a lot of grief as well from the locals. But it is what it is, man. That's them. And, a lot of respect to them and what they're going through right now. And even the African people who are of a certain age are feeling it as well. I read a story about like a Nigerian nurse who was in the NHS like within its first year of existence. And she had to pay a premium that is designed for people who are not from the UK or European Union. And I was like, as if you were a part of working for this for so many years and they're charging you the same as somebody visiting from Brazil or something like that. You know what I mean? Like the levels to that is wicked, man.
And listen, I know this is off topic, but I have to ask. I know it's off topic. I promise we're going to get back on topic. I still don't understand it, but what's going on with Brexit and how does that affect? I know it's off topic, but
it's cool. I'll say this. Basically, back in 2016, the Prime Minister David Cameron, he was getting a lot of pressure from some of these. Let's put it like this: the people who would have voted probably for Donald Trump, probably some of them. I'm not saying that that the EU is perfect or that I love the EU. Like that's another problem people have, is that you can't say this or that. Nah, there's reasons to question the EU. There's reasons to leave. There's reasons to not. But the people that kind of made it a national thing, you know what they're like. Right winger type, complaining about immigration, all that shit. And eventually they got the referendum. and they had the date, and then it went out. People voted, and it was literally, I think it was like 52-30, like it was within a single digit percentage close.
Oh, we had lost you for a second. Hello?
Oh, my bad. Yo, you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like politically, what we've realized, unfortunately, is that we're quite tied into EU laws and regulations, and it's really difficult to find a way to leave the EU that in a way that doesn't financially kind of fuck up the country for the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like, and one big issue is Northern Ireland. And a lot of people don't know Northern Ireland is on the island of Ireland, but it's not a part of the country of Ireland. It's a separate thing. Ireland, as in, green, white, orange, they're their own country. They're in the EU. They've got EU laws, they use the euro, all of that type of stuff. Northern Ireland is a part of Britain. And back in the day, there was a lot of violence in Ireland between the Northern Irish and the Republic of Ireland, like the IRA and the UVF. They were, shooting each other, killing each other. It was a civil war that it was pretty ugly, to be fair. Like, they set off bombs. They on both sides, a lot of evil stuff happened on both sides. And when they settled for peace, they made a really big deal and said that you cannot have walls separating North and South. That's a big, big, big problem for them. That's like a really big deal breaker for a lot of people on that side. So because Britain can't figure out a way to live like outside of a border with a country, if right and center. Well, we've said we want to leave, but we don't know what we're going to do about how we're going to manage Ireland. And the problem is that in Northern Ireland, they have certain things that are different from the UK, but they don't want to separate from the UK. At the same time, if it becomes messy, like they could just say, you know what, screw you, we're going to join up with the main island. But in terms of Black people, I've said this, we need to be very careful of looking at how these people are setting themselves up, because even though the EU isn't perfect by any means, there's already a lot of, poverty and austerity and things of that nature in our communities. We just need to be watchful that, when the shit hits the fan, we need to at least know when to duck. That's what I say.
You said when to go, like leave.
We need to know. We need to at least be aware of how this is going to affect the country, in the sense that, for the most part, our community is going to be amongst the most influenced if things go bad. But other than that, truth be told, aside from making life difficult for, let's say, our brothers and sisters from Francophone countries who are coming through France and want to come to the UK, I mean, me personally, it's a bit early to call it, but I do think that it's important to watch how they're setting up, but they're not outright saying, because they can't really outright say we're going to kick all of you Africans out. Don't worry, I think they can, but I'm not saying, I don't think that they're doing Brexit just for that. You know what I'm saying? I reckon they want to do all types of stuff with immigration and shut it down and all that type of stuff. Well, the problem is the Caribbeans, you can't get rid of them because of the EU. Africans, a lot of Africans tend to come from colonial countries like Nigeria and Ghana and all that type of stuff, so they've not come through the EU. I mean, they'll try and, it's political back and forth, but the main thing really to take is that, one, they're not going to solve an issue on Northern Ireland, and they're not going to risk another civil war, like over something stupid, because Northern Ireland will just leave. Two, financially, they've played themselves into a hole. They don't know how they're going to regulate nothing. They've got to a point now where they're starting to form whole new political parties. I mean, you ain't got to be well rehearsed in British politics to know that if there was a new party that was formed because people was tired of the same old political one, like that's something you usually want to keep a little eye on. Like there's a lot of money behind the scenes and all of this other type of stuff. But it's hard to predict because none of these politicians are acting normal. Like I will admit, they've made some shocking decisions, and it's quite sad. But they've just tried to ask the EU for a bit of an extension. We're not even sure if we're going to get that. And if we go out with a no deal, well, I think financially it's going to be a very, very, very bad thing for this country. That's only my opinion. Maybe we'll magically bounce back. But in terms of Brexit, watching these people do the Donald Trump vote that's going to last a lifetime, well, what can I say? I'm just trying to tell black people to get our shit together so that when the shit hits the fan, we know where to duck. That's it. But it's just pandering between, the far right. To be honest with you, if you want to understand Brexit, just look at Trump's people. Look at Trump. That's it. It's like that.
Yeah, but I think something similar is going on in France right now too.
Oh yeah. France with their recent presidential election, they nearly had. I can't remember what that evil woman's name is, but they nearly had her become president, even though the one they got now, the bro that went to Ghana and then the Ghanaian president was flipping his mouth about him. Macron, that's his name.
Macron, yeah.
He ain't no better. I mean, he it's all the same. You give me left or right. That's all you're really giving me.
Right.
The woman he went up against, she was serious. And the thing is, she's associated with the Front National. Now in the UK, the National, and they were very known for attacking black people, Asian people, killing some of them. Like they eventually outlawed and all that type of stuff. But in France, they have a big presence, and because France has a lot of like Northern African immigrants from their francophone countries, there's a lot of anti-Muslim, a lot of anti-African sentiment amongst them. Al Jazeera, BBC News, even they can, even they kind of call out the shadiness around that party. But it's sad that when we're looking at the modern day, we're not connecting the dots and saying these people are a political entity. Like, it's very frightening to know some of the people which would support that type of stuff. And Christchurch is a prime example of why I feel that it's a bit concerning over in France, let alone Italy, let alone all across Europe, all this far right, stuff coming up and everything, even in Germany, which is a bit shocking because, they've tended to be quite some type of way to avoid, associations with, the back in World War II days and things like that. But all these people they're getting agitated about something. I'm just quietly just minding my corner, keeping an eyeball open and saying like, look, we need to be very, very, very aware and watch how these people move. France is a very dangerous place if turned in the right situation.
Let's see what we got here in the chat room. And then what we'll do, we'll go ahead and get back on topic. Now, I guess your parents will probably know when did your parents first come to the UK, arrive in the UK?
I think in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was their experience? How were they received by? But see, there was already a large African community, I guess, in the UK when they got there.
Yeah, but I've asked my parents and my uncles and my cousins about how the relationship was, and they all said that. I mean, yeah, there was some tensions. Some Caribbean people didn't like Africans. Some Caribbean people said that Africans were coonish and like Africans were suck up major and all this other type of stuff. And some Africans did slightly, if you will, probably they were probably right about that in some cases. But at the same time, Africans as well, it went both ways. Africans had some, not all Africans either, but like some. It really, another thing I want to overstress is that when we're talking about this, we're talking about a minority within the group. The majority within the group just kind of don't mind each other. Like there were some people that said, oh, well, West Indians is like this and they're lazy and they're violent and this, that, and the third. And a little bit of that is old immigrant, new immigrant.
Right.
And a little bit of that, I think, is quite similar to what's happening at the moment with the first generation community in the US and the African American community. When I see people like Candace Owens.
Right. She's Caribbean. I never knew she was Caribbean.
Exactly. You see, that's the type of thing where I say, all right, you see, this is a bit loose, Candace. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, when people like a Candace Owens come out and do stuff like that, I just shake my head and I'm like, you're making this very difficult for your folks on either side of the table, because I think it's a bit disrespectful to show up and to not learn the history of them people and to not kind of be respectful. Obviously, West Indians have had a long tradition of emigrating to the US, dating back to, the 20s and the early days and all them types of things as well. And I'm not saying that everything's animosity, but when you look at someone like a Candace Owens, that's the kind of mentality which some immigrants bring to the table. And that's dangerous. Although the irony is that my best friend my oldest friend is Jamaican. His family are all from Jamaica as well. And when I was growing up, my mom didn't. That's just our people. We didn't see any differences, and we wasn't like them a lot. Like, we didn't understand people that would come and be disrespectful like that. You know what I'm saying? My mom may be Ghanaian and she may do Ghanaian things. Like, she might predominantly go to Ghanaian weddings or Nigerian weddings or whatever. But she wasn't, I wasn't raised in that type of disrespect.
Right.
But my dad, and particularly as a man, he didn't have that many issues. No. Like, we tended to get on because back in the 70s and the 80s, racism in the UK was really overt. Well, in comparison to what it is today within a British context. So I think back then it was easier to mend the bridges quickly because there was clearly a lot of outright flagrant issues, like, skinhead groups causing people issues, police arresting people and giving them issues, whether that stopped today is another question. But, I think nowadays, though, especially with my generation and the generations that have come that are now in their third generation and fourth generation in the UK, I feel like that's starting to fade away significantly. But, we as communities still do check each other a lot. I don't mind it when the Caribbean community say what they want at Notting Hill Carnival, because it's their thing. They're not going to tell me what we're going to have a Ghana party in the park. That's what Ghanaians are going to control. Right. But it's about respectful boundaries.
Twilight 15 says Africans in the UK feel the Caribbeans gave the game up to Indians. Oh, okay, I guess he means that Caribbeans were more receiving to Indians than African immigrants.
I mean, I'm a certain age, but in certain respects, I guess, like culturally, for example, my Caribbean friends, they're like granddads and they're older generation in their family. A lot of them played cricket because it's very popular in the Caribbean, and it was particularly very popular in like the 80s and 70s and things like that. Now, somewhere where Caribbean people got to mix a lot with Indian people was at cricket clubs, because Indians are very big fans of cricket as well.
Right.
So there is that aspect of shared culture, sure. But I don't know about that one. Me personally, I don't know about that one. Indians. Like liking them more than that might be someone's motivation. Maybe some Africans was pissed about that. But I personally never addressed that question before. It's interesting though. I don't think so.
Yeah, let's see what else we got here in the in the chat room. But yeah, like I said, I might be in London in May. I'm just trying to decide. Now, is it the how are things now? I'm pretty sure the younger generation, more open-minded, and then you have social media, so a lot of these misunderstandings are
if you look at like grime music, for example, and in particular like grime culture, for example, you're gonna find that it's a very blended Black experience nowadays. You'll have a lot of kids who have long Yoruba names who will greet their friends with West Indian phrases because that's just how we speak in London amongst ourselves. Like if I'm meeting one of my friends, I might say like, "Oh, well, go on, bro. Like, what you saying?" And then that's just normal to us. The same way that a West Indian kid, he might say like Somali words, or a Somali kid might say a Nigerian phrase in a sense. So our generation, we are definitely not on that beef and shit. Like them beefs they're pointless, but not just that, but we kind of know better. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if we wanted to do the whole Africans are better or Caribbeans are better, I think something which helps our generation avoid that is that we're very, we're quite critical, and we often say, well, all right, well, where's the African building? Where's the African this? Where's the Caribbean this?
Right.
Okay. We're all quite the same. Our older generations, they might try and say like, I'm not gonna say that it's perfect, like it's just some big old kumbaya, because it's not. Like there are Caribbeans who don't like Africans. There are Caribbeans who have a lot of sentiments about Africans, even dating back to the whole soldier brothers into slavery thing.
Okay. Explain that, the soldier brothers slavery thing. What do you mean by that?
Like the same way some, like not all, but like some African American people, I'm not gonna say that like they hate Africans just because of the historical collaboration between Africans and Europeans that resulted in their ancestors being put into the slave trade. But some people are very ignorant in their history, and they might just say like, oh, well, Africans don't like you anyway. Africans, like, you see how they sold your brothers, like that's how they are. You know what I'm saying? So some people talk that, but at the same time, I look at them like coons.
Right.
And coons are not a majority of like us as Black people. Sure, there's some coons who get into very high and influential positions, and sure, there's a lot of coonery amongst Black people. But I don't look at that as like just if someone says that shit, I'm like, oh, you're one of those stupid people of your people, rather than that's how you people are. You know what I mean? Like it to me, it comes off as like a rare ignorance. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not a good representative for your people. You know what I'm saying? And the best is that my family friends who are from the Caribbean and that, like they've sat with me and they've always talked to me about how even though there may have been a little bit of tension back in the day, back when they used to have those old like ska parties and punk parties and all of these old like music trends which the Caribbeans had with the reggae and stuff like that, like there was always Africans at them parties.
Right.
There was always love and connection between the communities. Sure, nobody is perfect, but at the same time, the more each generation has kids that were born here, the less that really tends to be anything. It tends to, now it's just about what flag you bring to.
Let me ask you, you mentioned something about the Caribbean building and the African building. Are there a lack of Black institutions in the UK? Oh, the brother froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now. You're back.
Yeah. Did you hear the question?
No, can you say it again, please?
You mentioned something about the African building and the Caribbean building. Do Blacks in the UK suffer from a lack of institutions?
Oh my God, do we? Yeah. Which wasn't always the case, by the way. The back in I hate to say it, but again, back in like the mid 80s, the 1970s and 80s, there were a lot of Black Pan-African Saturday schools, which would teach kids in the community about, math, science, English, African history, things like that. But yeah, we don't really have any institutions that I can even truly think to name. A lot of them, if we do have an institution, unfortunately, a lot of them are government based, and there's not really that many either. So we do not have very many institutions amongst ourselves as Black people here in the UK. There's a lot of people trying. There's a lot of people trying to bring it back and try and pursue things up, but nah, it's really lacking. And I think that it's our number one priority as first generation Africans, as people of the diaspora, people of Black Britain, which is, you know, don't go begging nobody to help you. No one's gonna come help us. No one's gonna come save us. No one wants to. There's no money. No one cares. They're busy with Brexit. What can we do? And I think we can do a lot more than what we think we can. But at the same time, a lot of people are doing a lot of good things now too. So
now, someone in the chat, now this might be a stereotype, which I really don't want to bring it up. You want me to ask this? It's an ignorant question. You want me to ask it?
Go for it.
If you have a child and live in the UK, first of all, Kante Usama, where are you from? Answer that question too. If you have a child and live in the UK, especially in London, you will not like your children to mingle with Jamaicans because most of the killing and knife happening by Jamaicans.
Yeah, that's a stereotype. That's a dumb stereotype and a half, right? And you know what really gets on my nerves about that, right?
He's from Cameroon. All right, go ahead.
Exactly. You see, now this is the underbelly of what I'm talking about. When people say things like that, that is the 1% of wrong thinking that we allow too many people to talk about. Because there's plenty of dead Nigerian, Ghanaian, Ugandan, Somalian children that when we go and try and say like, oh, it's the Jamaicans who are violent and this, that, and the third. Oh, really? Really? Oh, please cut the fucking shit. Like, no. I've been through the ends. I'll take you round. I'll go show you some dangerous Africans, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not that stereotype is what I'm talking about when I say like the minutia of Africans that come over and then wanna act like, oh, well, West Indians are involved with drugs and crime and this and that. Okay, so when they call us fraudsters and 419 scammers, does that make them correct then? Because I know of Africans that have been involved with that. That's bullshit, bro. No. And that type of attitude is a hang-up from the old days. That's the type of attitude which is dying out amongst my generation as such. But that's the type of thinking which I'm talking about. That's the dumb shit we do that fucks us up and wastes our fucking time. Where is the African... Where's the African Saturday school that's churning out Oxford and Cambridge fucking graduates, huh? Like don't worry, we've got good people in our community, but so do the West Indian community. You know, Akala is half Scottish, half like Jamaican. He is the number one Black thought leader, one of the number one high level Black thought leaders out there. Africans, we have people that are like him, sure, but to say that West Indians are all involved with crime, well, why is it then that one of the most intellectual minds of Black Britain is of West Indian heritage? No one ever has an answer for that. And Africans, you don't go around saying this whole thing about, oh, these people are violent, this, that, and the third. Like, do you know how stupid it looks like when we say that? But we do have violence on the continent. When we can't sit here and act like kids in Ghana are gonna be stabbed or shot in the street like in New York or in London. But to also act like on the continent of Africa, we don't have our own like violence, which makes us look stupid when we call other people violent. That's naive. Like I don't think we should say that because people always turn around and say, well, what about civil war?
Somebody just brought something up in the chat room. So in America, even though it's an illusion, but it's still there, you have a lot of you have here in Atlanta, in the DC area, in LA, you have affluent Black communities. And then someone was saying that that's not the case in the UK. Is that true or?
Yeah, that's right. For example, when I've traveled to America, that was the first time I ever saw middle class and upper middle class and rich Black communities. I didn't think you don't see that in London. You don't see that in the UK. You can see like rich Indian, particularly Indian, like, but you can see rich like South Asian communities mixed in with whites, but South Asians do a little bit better, a lot better than us in a lot of regards. There's not really a black middle class area that I can show you. If I take you to somewhere that has a predominance of black people, it is probably on the social downside. That's a sad reality if it's majority black. Like it's the truth. It's unfortunate. Yes, there are mixed areas where you have blacks, Asians, and whites, which might be getting gentrified, so statistically look a little better. But there's not really any black middle class area, and black people in London, in particular, and a lot of the major cities are suffering from the kind of, well, the price is going up, gentrification, well, it's time we move out situation right now as well. So even a lot of majority black areas are kind of going through a lot of change right now. We don't really have like those black middle class areas like Harlem back in the day,
right,
for example, or the nice ends of Harlem or things like that. We don't have that as much. No. Okay. At all, really, truth be told, no.
Yeah, I know there's a I was gonna say there's a whatchamacallit, a documentary on like the super rich Nigerians of the UK.
Oh yeah.
So I know there's a lot of
yeah, there's rich black individuals.
Right. Okay.
But the black middle class group is either very small or I'd say it's more individuals, really, truth be told. Like, and then that's another thing about Africans, which I over stress all the time. It's like if there are, and I know they're super rich, you know, Africans from the continent, African first generation people. Where is our buildings? Where is our institutions? In my opinion, I remember I heard it on your show where you was talking about like brothers in the US, like our first generation brothers, pooling their money together, and I think it was something like sending ambulance equipment back to the continent or something like that. I don't see that. I'm not aware of that. I mean, I know a few brothers that are involved in shipping, like in terms of shipping goods to and from Ghana, and there are, you know, Ghanaian like businesses or African businesses and things like that, but we don't have any institutions. You know what I mean? Like we can't say anything until we have institutions where we can protect our people or where we can provide things that are specific to us. Like no institutions, no middle class, no area. You know, what are we really talking about? It's hard.
Brother Dulani wants to know, do you support the reparations march in London on the 1st of August?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that them brothers, I think this year is important, like just particularly with Brexit and a lot of political shakeup is an easy way for people to kind of get like distracted. Like that march has happened year after year after year. I really support the idea of Britain paying back the people that helped make the country what it is. I just don't see a problem with that. I support that, yeah. And a lot of the older conscious community kind of people who've been doing it for a while, they've been backing that for a while as well.
Let's see what else we got here in the chat room. Everyone, make sure we hit that like button as well. We have 264 people watching, only 77 likes. Let's get that. Let's hit that like button. Please.
Share the love.
Let's see here, but yeah, I think the institution issue. I mean, but this is the thing about America. We've had and have institutions, but they're slowly being compromised. You know, I think that's the problem here in America with Black institutions.
Yeah. And then definitely there's always a question of, you know, just because you have an institution, is it 100% effective? Is it serving the community to the best of its ability? You know, who's financing it? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? Absolutely. However, in a sense, I mean, I would like to have a little bit of an institution for a short period of time rather than have no institution ever. Like in a sense, obviously there are Black groups, Black institutions, Black companies. And something I think we're doing now is we're starting to support a little bit more. We're starting to push a little bit more. We're starting to establish things that we need a little bit more. But you're right. If we don't if you don't establish institutions, then unfortunately everything good that you do will die with the creator of that movement. Like everything kind of just goes away with that one person. Like two people can have an argument and then they're not cool anymore, and then okay, the whole thing's gone now. Book. Like it shouldn't be like that. Like we have to get comfortable with the idea of organizing amongst ourselves, so that even if we want to do something basic like group economics, like pooling money together. Actually, truth be told, and this is for whoever it was that just started talking that nonsense about the West Indians. You don't want your kids growing around the West Indians.
Right.
Okay, cool. Back in the day when the first Caribbeans first came over, because they were so not like, everyone hated them. All the white people didn't, they hated them immediately. They couldn't get housing. Something which was very common amongst the Caribbean community was that they would pool their money together. I think it was called something like a partner. If anybody out there knows like the specific details of how that works, but it's kind of like, I think it was something like like maybe there might be 5 families, and then they might all put their money together, and then one person might use a chunk of that money to buy a house. But then in that house, they might have, they might try and rent out a room and help each other and all that type of stuff. And it was a way in which over a generation, a large amount of Caribbean people were able to actually buy their homes through pooling that money together. Things like that. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, we don't talk enough about things like that. We don't talk about how that is organization. That is, if we could have continued to have done that for a few more decades successfully amongst ourselves, isn't that building a financial institution that is supporting your people?
It is.
A little bit. Isn't that building network ties within a community? Again, the Caribbean community, and more props to them. They were some of the founders and some of the biggest proponents of the Pan-African Saturday School movement. We had a lot of people that were volunteering a lot of time to teach things on weekends, to get kids in and out of school, to mentor kids, this, that, and the third. Like, again, those institutions were there, and unfortunately, over time, they died away and they washed away. And there's still some to this day. There are still some black Saturday schools in that. But as an institution, we can see how a generation benefited from that, opposed to us just wanting to be some individuals. Like we've tried being individuals, that don't work. We've tried, begging some of these people in the government to change the educational system or whatever. That's not worked. Okay, fine. Let's just build our own thing and let's just do our own thing. Particularly as Pan-Africanists as well, because nowadays, particularly with technology being what it is, an organized group of Pan-Africanists or anyone, from the community can get a lot done. You and I are able to communicate on opposite sides of the globe because technology's opened the door for us to. You know what I'm saying? So, we've got the technology, we've got the connections, we've got all the knowledge about Egypt up the arse. What
Right.
What are we gonna do?
Right. Absolutely. Shout out to O'Shea. I know O'Shea Duke Jackson is in Uganda right now. O'Shea, I want to just thank you for, super chatting some of that money that's reserved for tricking off in Uganda and blessing me with that, O'Shea, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see here. What else we got in the
Oh, actually, I want to ask something. Have you ever been to Tanzania?
I have. I've been to Tanzania 3 times.
Okay, what's it saying? One of my friends just came back from there. He said he had a wonderful time in there. Like, what's it saying?
I love Zanzibar. It depends what you're into. So if Tanzania, to me, is probably the most diverse place in Africa, because Tanzania and Kenya, well, really Tanzania, because you could pretty much do everything there. So if you're into safaris, you could do a safari in Tanzania. Okay. If you want to climb mountains, they got Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa. If you're into the beach, they got Zanzibar. By far, all the beaches I've been to, the most beautiful island I've been to ever in life.
Nice.
You know, they got the city life in Dar es Salaam, so it's very diverse. I mean, everything is diverse enough to pretty much meet or match the criteria that you're looking for if you want to just travel to one African country. It's all there in Tanzania.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've been 3 times. So
Nice. No, okay. It sounded lit, and I don't know. I feel like a weird curiosity towards, like Tanzania. I want to go to Botswana. I've heard apparently like it's really nice there.
man, come to Nigeria, man.
Oh, that's obviously. Like I've always wanted to go to, what's it called? Victoria Island. Is it called Victoria Island or Lagos Island?
Victoria Island. You got Lagos Island, Victoria Island. Yeah, man, come to Nigeria, man.
Oh, definitely. It's
I'm trying to
definitely
get everybody to come to Nigeria.
No, man. I definitely. One thing I would love to see, like, is like a dream of mine in my head, is I would love to see Lagos become the African center of boxing.
It's it's good. It's happening. I mean, you look at the top boxers right now. Anthony Joshua, he's Nigerian.
Yeah.
Was it Usman? Is that his name? Usman. Starts with a U.
Oh, yeah. Umaru.
Is it Maru or?
Yeah.
He's Nigerian.
Yeah.
UFC now. The UFC champion in one of the weight classes. He's Nigerian. So
there's another one. Israel Adesanya. Yeah, Israel Adesanya. He's another Nigerian UFC fighter. Like, see, that's what I'm talking about. I like seeing, I like seeing everyone from a Tyron Woodley to an Adesanya, African American, Black. I want everybody to come, and let's just make our own little fight mecca in, Nigeria, but wherever, you know what I'm saying? But I really think that Nigeria has like something about it that I think would lend itself to the fight industry. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if you try and go to some other countries, I feel like maybe it might not work the right way. But you take a lot of these behind the scenes like boxing industry folks and other them folks, I think they'll act right in Nigeria, because I think they'll actually be a little bit cautious. Like, yo, we don't want to say too much out here. Like, they might beat us in the street. Like, let's do this. But definitely want to see that.
I want to give another shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson for the super chat for again, not being selfish and tricking off in Uganda, but directing some of that money to me. Thank you, brother O'Shea. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you, and shout out to STL as well. For the super. Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's see what else we got. Okay. No, well, Deontay Wilder said he was Nigerian at one time, or said his roots from there.
Oh, okay. Shout out. If Nigeria seems to be the place where all these fighters are coming from, there's a lot of boxers from Ghana as well, from a place called Bukom.
Okay.
And it's weird. Up until I think 2010, every decade they had some kind of world champion out of Bukom. And I remember one of my family members saying that apparently in Bukom they're known for making really nice kenke and fighting.
Oh, okay.
Apparently that's it. Like, you could get your hair braided, get yourself some nice kenke, or if you want to get at it, you can fight with them, because they got a lot of Ga people in that area, and apparently Ga people are known for that. But again, that's just tricking off in between. But no, man, you're right about the whole fight industry and about these Nigerian fighters. Because when I watched that Usman talking on a podcast yesterday, like, I didn't know his dad got arrested by the FBI or something. For,
who's that?
That I think it's Kamaru Usman, the one who.
That's the brother I'm talking about. His name is Efe Ajaba.
Ajaba.
Yeah, he's an up and coming Nigerian heavyweight boxer. He's supposed
to, okay.
Yeah, but he hasn't fought anybody yet though. You know what I'm starting to notice, David? Like, if you look at these heavyweights versus the heavyweights back in the day, like back in the 80s and 90s, they're if you look at them, they're all out of shape. They're fat as hell.
Yeah, the heavyweight division ain't really as competitive as it used to be. It's I think a little bit comes from when you get a certain type of strength. Like, can you have an entertaining and challenging fight without some of these huge, strong guys, knocking each other clean out before anything gets going? The money that was involved in the 90s, You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a shame, but it's gone down a way. You know, actually, just real quick, actually, what do you think of Floyd Mayweather?
Love Floyd. I mean, as a fighter, he's a great fighter. I mean, you know, I don't think he makes the best decisions outside of the ring, but you know, as a fighter, he's the greatest. He's the GOAT. I mean,
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. And he's a great boxer. Horrible. I think he's a horrible representation, you know, outside of the ring. But even looking at how he boxed and that, you know, I can see how, like, in a sense, maybe some of the attention went away from heavyweight boxing and it went to other weight classes. Hopefully, people like your Wilders and your Joshuas can bring some of that competitiveness and entertainment back.
I wonder if Wilder and Joshua will ever fight.
I think they will, and I'm backing my man Anthony to do the thing. Give me 1 second, bro. 1 second. I just need to do something.
Go ahead. Everyone, let's hit that like button as you come in. We have 272 people watching, only 129 likes. Shout out to All About Africa. Nigeria is the hub for Africa, so I agree with y'all that it should be the top spot for boxing UFC events on the continent. Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree too.
Yeah,
I agree too. And then STL wants to know why are Nigerians the spokesman? I don't know what you mean by. I don't.
You know what? I was chatting to someone about this, and I think that the rest of Africa, and I know I'm Ghanaian, I think we really need to just kind of accept that Nigerians make up a large number of black people on the earth. That's gonna count.
Well, it's the blackest country
on the face of the earth,
and then they have the largest diaspora on the planet.
Exactly. So
this is the thing. Black Americans were the most visible on the planet, but the largest group is. See, I'm both, so I have best of both.
Yes, and you have the fucking right to say that now with the.
I can say that I'm both. So I have best of both. I'm Nigerian, Black, African American, so I'm both.
You know what? Even if you look at the Caribbean, a lot of islands might say the same thing about big islands like Jamaica or Cuba. You know, if you have a group of people, you know, whether it's Nigeria in Africa, whether it's Ethiopia in East Africa, whether it's South Africa in Southern Africa, you know, whether it's Jamaica in the Caribbean, you know, there are gonna be more prominent, you know, percentages of people and voices within the community in that. Obviously, I'm not saying that Nigerians should be able to represent solely for the black race and all that type of stuff, but come on, man, 1 in 6 black people in the world is Nigerian. Like,
listen, somebody just put that in the chat room too, right as you said it. Did you read that or did you already know?
No, that's just karma. You see what I'm saying, bro? Like, it's that big. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, you know, because Nigerians and Ghanaians in the UK, even we fucking like have little one-offs, like, you know, like when you're growing up in particularly like London in the city, like you might be playing football with your mates. It might be like Ghanaians versus Nigerians, or Ghanaians might talk shit about, you know, Nigerian jollof. Nigerians might talk shit about Ghanaian jollof and all that type of stuff. Like, you know, we know what it is. But, at the same time,
Senegal has the best jollof though. Senegal does.
Really?
The best.
This is the first I've heard this, you know. This is the first I've heard it. I've heard Gambia apparently has got.
Okay, listen. Okay, here we go. So Senegal and Gambia is the food is exactly the same. It's the same. Senegal is exactly the same. Yeah, it's exactly the same. So if somebody says Gambia is Senegal, is the same.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's what I've heard. I've tasted jollof from every African background I can. I will stick with Ghana jollof. It's never failed me. I don't shit on nobody for what they do.
This is what's weird. Like, so when you deal with like Senegalese and Gambian, the food that is served at the restaurant is very close to the food that they serve at their home.
Oh.
When it comes to Ghanaian and Nigerian, is night and day. So the jollof rice you'll get at a Ghanaian restaurant or a Nigerian restaurant will be completely different and does a disservice to jollof rice, the rice you'll eat at somebody's home. So like my friend, when I go to New York, when I fly out of Newark, New Jersey to go to Africa,
Yeah.
I usually stay at a friend's house in New York, and there is one Ghanaian girl and is one Nigerian girl, and so like they cooked for me one day, like when I come, and they made like this. They made the jollof rice with this tomato stew and goat or tomato stew with fish, and it was just delicious. And I'm just like, oh my god, it tastes night and day. Like it was so good. But then when you go to the restaurants, I don't know if they cut corners or if they're removing ingredients. I don't know what they're doing, but it's not as good.
Do you think that the restaurant quality or the restaurant taste, do you think like they're kind of trying to pander to like a wider audience or something?
No, I mean good food is good food,
Yeah, that's why I look at that and I'm kind of like how do you fuck it up really? Like just make more of it quicker. That's no. I mean obviously, restaurants, I don't know what they're doing, but nah man, like a lot of the jollof rice, a lot of the foods I've had over here, like they come from good, solid, back home companies where people, catering for parties and things like that. Things tend to be on the better side, but I want to try this Senegambian jollof rice.
Man, I would think because Gambia was colonized by the British, you guys should have a Gambian restaurant. I would think in the UK.
Yeah, but there's not that many people in the Gambia, are there?
There's not, but I would think there would be a Gambian restaurant, or maybe even a Senegalese restaurant in the UK.
I'm sure that there's, because especially in some places in London, like you'll start to get a little bit of mixing between like certain regional African countries. So you might go to like an Ethiopia, like you might go to like a Kenyan restaurant that does some Somali dishes, or you might go to a West African, like Nigerian owned restaurant that does like Ghana styles, like rice or stew or things like that. I'm sure, like in London, I'm sure there's got to be some sort of Senegalese spot somewhere. And if not, then I'll be greatly disappointed. But there's definitely a lot of African places you can eat in London as well. Like definitely. Although, like you said, actually, I want to find, let's see if there is this Gambian restaurant. Specific Gambian experience.
Yeah, that by far is like if somebody's telling me Liberian, I have not had Liberian yet. In fact, you know what?
Have you been to Liberia? You've been to Liberia, isn't it?
No, I haven't. My dad has. My dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my dad's been to Liberia several times, but
okay.
So yeah,
I wanted to like, because I've heard the story, like some of the stories of Liberia about why it turned to like some civil war stuff and how it was things were going well before and a little bit of the history. Like do you know anything about that? Like like do you know kind of what's like what going on there?
Oh man, that's a whole nother show. But basically, that's a whole nother show. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say the Americas were perfect.
No, they weren't.
They weren't, but at the same time, the way the Civil War went down, it wasn't justified at all. And if you look at it, Liberia has not recovered at all, and probably won't.
No.
I mean, freed black slaves who wanted to leave America because of the racial terrorism.
Yeah.
To Liberia. Now, some of the misconceptions is that they came and they conquered and stole land. No,
that's not.
Land was bought from the local tribes.
Yeah.
And treaties were signed, and agreements were reached. Now you have to understand, you have free black Americans who arrived to Liberia. Free black Americans who just got out of slavery.
Yeah. It would have been back in like wasn't it like
it was the 1800s. So they arrived. You have African tribes who were participating in the slave trade. Okay. Once Liberians were able to settle in their land, they had to deal with African tribes who were constantly trying to raid their settlement.
Oh.
Now they got along with some of the other and made treaties with some of the tribes that were there as well. Now, do I completely agree with the Americas having power for damn near over 150 years?
No.
But the way it went down as far as the Civil War, I completely disagree with, and I think it was absolutely disgusting because if you look at, like, we'll take Ghana for example.
Yeah.
The Europeans came in, colonized.
Yeah.
When colonialism was over, they had these big old parades. The Queen of England will show up. She'll come pull up in a brand new Cadillac. Her and Kwame Nkrumah are in the Cadillac, waving to the crowd and confetti and shots in the air. And then she walk, they send her they walk her to her private jet, and she goes off to the UK. But to this day, the UK has his interest, we'll just say it like that.
Yeah.
Kinda,
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with Liberia, it's a bloody coup. Instead of having the opportunity for, say, okay, Tolbert, it was either Tubman or Tolbert. It was Tolbert. William Tolbert was the president. Instead of giving him and his staff the opportunity to say, hey, look, guys, we're taking over. You guys need to hit the road and dip. They assassinate him. They then take Tolbert's staff, tie them up to poles on the beach, and publicly execute them.
Ooh.
It's just, again, the way it was handled.
Oh,
I disagree with them. Was absolutely disgusting. That's why Liberia has not recovered to this day.
Okay.
Again, do I agree with America's having power? And then at the same time, you got to understand, David, the small amount, and the Americans, or the Black people who came from the West, it wasn't just Black Americans. You had some Caribbeans.
Yeah.
It was a mixture. And then they, at the same time, they integrated through marriage with a lot of the locals.
Yeah.
So the so-called America, or just the pure Western descendant of slaves, they pretty much were breeded out by like the early 1900s, because a lot of them married out of the local tribes.
Isn't that quite similar with Sierra Leone?
You know what? It's the exact same for the most part from Sierra Leone.
Yeah, like I got brethren who are of Sierra Leonean heritage, and we know that story. The only difference is, I guess, is that the Sierra Leonean Civil War, obviously in the 90s, and the whole thing about blood diamonds and things like that. Yeah. I think that's a little bit kind of more well known to the world than the intricacies of what happened with Liberia, which is why I'm always curious about it, because like you said, like there's some people that want to tell the whole story one way, tell the whole story the other way. I don't think anyone is perfect. However, one thing which I do think is this: if you are a recently enslaved person who got their freedom and it's still the 1800s, and you survive a boat journey from America all the way to West Africa, and you see African tribes in enslaving or engage in slave trade, like that's
I mean, what are you gonna do?
That's a trigger and a half, boy. There, boy, like, boy, there ain't no changing that. Like you're gonna get intricacies, but like you said, when you intermarry and you've been there for over 100 damn years now, like you're Liberian like all the rest of the Liberians, you're Sierra Leonean like all the Sierra Leoneans. So is what it is.
I just, the issue I have with Liberia is they try to paint it as if okay, Black Americans, we go back to Africa, look at Liberia. It just
I disagree with that as well.
And I completely disagree. Then they use the whole term, it's an example of the what they want to say. So pretty much the Black American learned from his slave master, and in Liberia, and then you're like, okay, show me examples of chattel slavery going on that Black Americans implemented in Liberia, and no one could show it. Like, show me where where Americans were participating in chattel slavery and were literally enslaved the locals. Show me the proof. Show me the proof of where the Americans were castrating, hanging, lynching, the population, and they can't show it. The only thing they can point to is Fernando Po, which was going on before Americos even showed up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and Goodyear. But Goodyear had to happen because if not, the British were about to colonize Liberia.
Mm.
So it's a lot. Like some of the decisions that were made were made in order to keep Liberia from being colonized.
Oh yeah. Like during that Berlin conference time and that, because a lot of people always say that Ethiopia was the only country that survived that and didn't get colonized. But I always remind people like Liberia didn't get colonized.
Well, that's the thing. Liberia never got colonized.
No.
Some people will say, well, the Black Americans who came were responsible. If you look into American history, America never claimed Liberia as a colony. Period.
No, it didn't. Like that's one aspect of the Liberia struggle, which I'm very confident on the knowledge of, which is one, it was not some colonial expedition by Black Americans.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, but if you lived in that time, to be given that, like, obviously you would take, like, if you wanted to take it, you would take it. Like, it was it's a contextual difference to going around and doing what the British or the French did to like Africa or Australia or something. I don't consider that the same at all. Like, yes, there were things which clearly went wrong on both sides, but I don't agree with that. And I always ask people as well, when they say that about Liberia, why don't they say that about the Rastas in Shashamani in Ethiopia? I think that's the name of the place.
Did do the Rasta still have control of that, or did they lose that?
And again, as far as I'm aware, they still have that area. I know it's something small, like maybe 500 acres, I think. But it's one of the many examples of people from the diaspora who have moved back to Africa. There's never been a diaspora returning and then all of a sudden like they come and start shooting up the place and hurting people or anything like that. Right. You look at most people from the diaspora who set up communities in Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, that they integrate happily and everything does kind of just keep going. There is no, there's no Bloods and Crips in Warri, Nigeria. You know what I'm saying? There's no broad issues. But something I guess I do want to kind of have a look at is little solution-based ways of solving issues between Africans and members of the diaspora, whether it be in the US, whether it be Africans and Caribbeans in the UK, or Africans and older Africans in the UK, whatever. Mm-hmm. And something which I think does need to happen, and it's going to be difficult because it's going to depend on certain types of people and positions, but people like yourself help dispel this bullshit that all Africans are thinking this type of way and all Africans feel like this towards the reparations movement, or all Africans feel like this towards African Americans. So I guess the first generation voices across the world have to make sure to be very vocal in supporting our Black brothers and sisters around the world, and also not too vocal as to start speaking on behalf of other groups. I don't like seeing first generation, and this is only my opinion, this is just me, I don't like seeing first generation people coming to a new country and then speaking on behalf of other people. That's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? Like, speak to those people, support them people, do what you do, and don't over talk them. Don't let them take the lead if they're in a situation with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to show support. We need to have an opposite to a Candace Owens ready.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we need them people with voices to do that. And another thing is again, like your channel, like, share culture both ways. Maybe some people don't like some aspects of African culture, but maybe they like the food, maybe they like the dancing, maybe they like the music. I think taking an interest and being respectful in that interest is something big. And I guess just staying the hell on code as well. Like, stop. I want people out there I hope that people out there really just stop this pandering behavior. Like, we need to make sure that it's established and known that these people don't speak on behalf of all Africans. That Africans and African Americans and Caribbeans and Afro Latinos, and we we can act like we've got these big beefs against each other. We haven't even really established ourselves. We don't have the luxury of beefing with people over petty bullshit because, like our kids are taking hits out here. Like the continent is taking hits out here. We haven't got the time for this anymore. And I feel that it's quite sad when I see like no institution, but we got everything bad to say about everybody else or this, that, and the other from all angles. I feel like that's the type of thing which has really got to that's got to stop. Like, particularly from Africans, and this is only because I'm speaking on behalf of African and all that type of stuff. Don't come from Ghana and then come over to the UK and then start sucking up to certain people. Don't go to America and start doing that. Mm-hmm. Like, just live your life. You can do a lot of great things. You don't have to pander to these people. So, things like that. Oh, and as we spoke on last time when I was here as well, like Africans, first generation Africans, I want us to be a part of a generation which really sticks it on our home nations about citizenship for our brothers and sisters of the diaspora, travel rights, whatever. I want us to really try and create the Wakanda, because I get it. I like Black Panther, but when they talk about Wakanda, sometimes I'm like, yo, we do have an actual Africa. Right. We don't need, a Wakanda. Like we can create a Wakanda in Kenya or Namibia, wherever. Like, we can do this, But I think that mission there to do that, especially with the help of brothers and sisters of the diaspora, I think that first generations, we need to start thinking, okay, how do we how do we start talking to back home? How, what part of the Constitution do we want to amend? What are the pros, what are the cons? Because I think that is going to be the calling. I think that's going to be the more, kind of progressive thing that can be done out there. Because it's hard for people to call you and your country sellouts if you're out there visibly doing something. You don't have to do too much. You don't have to beg nobody for your approval. And I guess from the African American side of things, do you think that African Americans understand how influential little things like the African booty scratcher stereotype of Africans from back in the day was? And I know that not all African Americans did it, and I know that it's nothing compared to some of the other sides of the argument that we can go on. But just looking at that particular kind of thing, like
it's influential, but I never. In fact, I'm gonna tell you this: us Black Americans, we called each other African booty scratcher before we called an African one. Like, did you ever see the movie Boys in the Hood?
Yeah.
That was a Black American and a Black American calling each other African booty scratcher.
Yeah.
That's why
I'll tell you what it is, right?
I've never called an African. I'm not saying it never happened, not trying to minimalize it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I've never seen any of my African friends being called African booty scratcher. Like, we called each other Black Americans African booty scratcher.
Okay. I mean,
the Boys in the Hood.
From some, and again, it's always a very rare minutia, but I mean, yeah, some Africans have said when they got to America, they wasn't exactly welcome. They wasn't, they looked different and they spoke with this accent and this, that, and the third and that. And me personally, because I was born in the Western world, I can kind of I get it, like, in a sense, because I kind of grew up around like a similar like culture. And I'm not saying all Africans aren't capable of getting it, but I think that some people, especially when you come from somewhere so very, very different, I think maybe some people may have taken that the wrong way in the past, as expected. You know what I'm saying? But again, I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, but again, that's me. I'm not coming from a certain type of position. But it seems to be something that is always like that always comes up like some people was really hurt by that one. You know what I mean? It's like, all right.
Yeah, but I mean, if you understand like Black American culture, we claim
Yeah,
each other all day. So
yeah, and
that's what we do.
not only that, but Africans were, you know, we're one thing you can't say. One thing that the world knows is Africans, you're some tough motherfuckers. Like we can survive every bad thing in the world. Like bad names ain't really gonna kill us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like a name is a name, cool, but you know, what are we doing in the future? You know, I hope that a lot of Africa, you know, kind of gets its act together, and I hope that these passports come flying, and I hope that I just hope that we can make these progressive steps before it's too late.
Hey, as a Ghanaian, you could be dual citizen in Ghana, right? If you wanted to.
Yeah, constitutionally, yeah. Even and that's something, yeah. Like my parents are from Ghana, so yeah, I can, you know, I'd have to apply for like a passport and that, or like a citizenship and all of that. But yeah, because my parents are Ghanaians, yeah, that's an easy thing for me. And I don't want Ghana to fuck up so much that by the time I've got my money set and I'm an older man and I want to retire, that, you know, it's overran with, you know, fuckeries and stupidity and all this other type of shit. You know what I'm saying? I want Ghana to develop into the type of place which I want the reputation of Pan-African Ghana to be real.
Oh, that died with Kwame Nkrumah, unfortunately, but hopefully it gets rekindled.
Exactly. And then I see people getting mad at like people like, oh, what you saying? What you saying? I'm like, bruv, like, come on now, with all this reputation, with all this W.E.B. Du Bois and Bob Marley wife and all this other type of stuff. I'm like, whoa, can we do a little bit more? Can we really hold ourselves up as the shining light of what, you know, a Pan-African state can be? Can we, you know, can we rally? Can we do the types of things that everybody keeps assuming we would? Because recently I've not seen the political decisions. I'm not sure you're aware of like the whole military base thing.
Yeah, I think that got down, did it?
I don't know. It felt like that. I didn't hear much of it, and I hope that maybe it got changed or maybe something else happened or something. But yeah, I mean, it's like things like that. I mean, yeah, sure, you can Ghanaian government, you can argue whatever you want, but to me and to the average person, like, what does that sound like? That doesn't sound very. That doesn't sound very. Nah, I don't like the sound of that. But I'm hoping that this Pan-African Ghana can kind of show up. You know, we're doing year of return. We're having people come and perform, like, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Without something solid, it feels a little bit like, you know, a bit of light work.
Yeah, I don't know what's coming from that, the year of return.
I sure, you know, I hope something does, you know, or at least I hope maybe some progressive thinking or something, because I think now is the time where Africa is going to need to start really considering how to integrate members of the diaspora who do want to move home. Like, I don't think that's a pipe dream. I don't think that that's something crazy. I think that that's a very serious thing we need to genuinely discuss. You know, like, yeah.
No, I understand. Well, brother, we'll go ahead and close out. How can everybody reach you?
Of course, if anybody's out there, you know, you want to check me out, I'm on Instagram, which is at Breath of Fresh Air 29. That's BREATHOFFRESH 29 on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, just, you know, have a look there. I post about everything and anything. Other than that, you know, obviously I've got episodes with yourself, episodes with the grapevine, and yeah, just generally just look out for me. Hopefully in the future can start my own thing and maybe try and get a little bit more of Black Britain out there. And as I sign out, I want to give everybody a recommendation of, if you want to really understand what Black Britain is like and you want to see it in a film, There's a great film called Kidulthood. So it's kind of like the word adulthood, but with like kid at the front. It's got a great cast of black actors. It was written and directed by one of the actors in the movie, and it is a cult classic. And I think that if anybody wants to kind of get an understanding or a vibe for what London's like, you know, Kidulthood is just it. For me personally, I hold it as a real classic movie. If not, then obviously Top Boy is on Netflix and that. So, you know, Top Boy is another option as well. But I'd recommend people go out there, check out a few of these movies or series and things like that, and get a vibe for it. Because I think that Black Britain has definitely started to bubble up with a lot of interesting talent. I think there's a lot of media out there that a lot of people be quite interested to see. It's not so different.
Well, brother David, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
No problem, bro. And again, as I said before, congrats on the citizenship and on the passport. You know, and didn't you get like ordained a prince or something?
Yeah, that too. Yes.
Exact. Congratulations on that. You know, your excellency, and to anybody out there, you know, peace, love. Check out the continent. Check out England, and yeah, happiness to everybody, man. And again, really, really happy to see you get that, man.
I appreciate it, brother. It means a lot. So everyone, make sure you go to Search for Uhuru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Like and share. Subscribe if you're new to the YouTube page. Dynasty Mirror, Search for Uhuru. Until next time, family. Peace.
Peace.